Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Sorry, my screen moved while I was looking at a detail. So welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. My name is Samantha McCoy. I am your service coordinator for today, and I'm also currently serving as the chair of our Sunday services team. And I've been a member here for a little over 20 years at this point. As we start our experience together this morning, it would be great if you could silence any cell phones or other electronic devices you might have with you if you haven't done so already. You may arrive this morning tired, weary, with the weight of war, hatred, greed, and mean-spiritedness feeling oppressive and heavy. You may arrive this morning in a feeling of a spirit of celebration, glad to see another day, to see friends, or carrying joys from this past week. You may arrive this morning unsure or unsteady, feeling neither here nor there, or maybe just feeling nothing at all. There's space for you here, and together we make our time one of community, support, friendship, kindness, and inspiration. You're invited to laugh and cry and share and be silent as you need to be. As we gather this morning, we also respectfully acknowledge that our physical building is on the traditional unceded land of the Paugussett people. And before we get started this morning, I invite you to take a moment to greet your neighbors, whether they are here in the fellowship hall or online. Wave, say hello, visit, and we'll get started in a moment. So now for some of our announcements, all of which are in the order of service if you need more detail, but we'll highlight a few of them. The first is that Reverend Tony will be on vacation starting July 16th and extending through August 18th. So if you have a pastoral care emergency, please contact Joan Campbell. Her phone number and email are in the order of service, and she can put you in touch with a minister who is providing vacation coverage while Reverend Tony is away. We also have an event happening this afternoon right here in our space. It's another edition of Music at the Ridge this month with Claudia Schmidt, and donations are $25 at the door if you attend in person. Another thing to note is that this coming September, we have 2 opportunities to join Chalice Circles, which are times for monthly reflection with other members of the congregation. And the 2 circles that will be happening are on either the second Sunday of the month after the morning service with Marcia Brooker facilitating, or the 3rd Tuesdays of the month at 1 p.m. in the minister's office with Reverend Tony facilitating. So if you're interested in participating in either of those Chalice circles, please contact Reverend Tony. The one thing I'll throw in, which is not on our slide, but is also in the order of service, is our Sunday services team has put out a survey. We're looking for feedback from the congregation about your service experiences each week. You can click on the link that's in the online order of service or that comes out in the weekly emails. But if you'd prefer a paper version, we have a stack of them out in the lobby if you're here in the fellowship hall. So please feel free to grab one of those and you can return it to me or to the office or to anyone on the Sunday services team. So we thank you for that. And now we'll move toward our chalice lighting. We make this time and this place holy simply by being together with each other. And we begin by lighting the flaming chalice, which is the symbol for our Unitarian Universalist tradition. Sierra is going to light for us while we join in the words. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another and celebrate life. So now I invite you to rise in body and or spirit and join us in singing our hymn of welcome, which is Here We Have Gathered, and it's number 360 in the gray hymnal. Words will be on the screen. Now I invite everyone to join me in our children's affirmation. So if you are willing, you can follow along with your U's high in the sky. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other. So this morning's story is going to be on video, so we will watch it on the screen, and it's called The Enemy, a book about peace. And the author is David Cali, and the illustrations are by Serge Bloch.
The Enemy, a book about peace. Written by David Cali and illustrated by Serge Bloch. The enemy is there, but I have never seen him. Every morning I shoot at him, then he shoots at me. We both stay hidden the rest of the day, waiting. Even when I'm hungry, I wait. I do not make a cooking fire. The enemy could sneak up when I am not looking and kill me. But sometimes I am so hungry, I light my fire. As soon as I do, the enemy lights his. Except for hunger, the enemy and I have nothing in common. He is a wild beast. He does not know mercy. I know this because I read it in my manual. A long time ago, on the first day of the war, we were given a manual and a gun. The manual tells us everything about the enemy. It says that we must kill him before he kills us. If he kills us, he will also kill our families and our pets, burn down our forests, even poison our water. The enemy is not a human being. Sometimes, I think the others have forgotten us. Maybe the war is over and no one remembered to tell us. Or maybe the world does not exist anymore. Maybe we are the last two soldiers fighting. Maybe whichever one of us survives will win the war. I have almost nothing to eat. Once I nearly caught a lizard that came close to my hole. Then I thought, if he sees me eating a lizard, the enemy will think I am desperate. Luckily, there is water from the well. I must be watchful. The enemy could poison it when I'm not looking. At night, there are lots of stars above my hole. I wonder if the enemy sees them too. Maybe if he looked up at them, he would understand that war is pointless and it must stop. But I can't be the first to stop fighting because he would kill me. I would not kill him if he stopped first because I am a man. I am not a beast. It is raining again, and I hate the rain. The war needs to end because I cannot stay in this hole any longer. Last night, the beating of the rain kept me awake. As I sat, I thought that soon there won't be a moon. If I leave my hole then, the enemy won't be able to see me. I thought soon the war could end. At last it is time. I put on disguise number 3, the bush, and leave. It is chilly, but the disguise keeps me warm. I crawl toward the enemy's hole to surprise him. I am going to kill him. Then the war will be over, and I can go home to my family. I have made a mistake. There are lions at night, and they can see in the dark. I just spotted one and must stay still. I am lucky. The lion is leaving. At last I reach the enemy's hole, but no one is here. He must be here. His things are here. There are pictures of his family. I wasn't expecting him to have a family. And what's this? A manual just like mine. But there is a difference. In this one, the enemy has my face. This manual is full of lies. I'm a man, not a monster. I am not the one who started this war. It is near dawn, and there is no sign of the enemy. Suddenly, I know where he is. He is in my hole. He tried to sneak up on me to end the war. Now I can't leave his hole. If only he would send me a message saying, "Let's end the war now," I would agree to it right away. So what is he waiting for? I am tired of waiting. There are clouds in the sky. It is going to rain again, and I hate the rain. I write a message on a handkerchief and put it in a plastic bottle. I close the bottle, aim carefully, and throw it. I hope my bottle falls in his hole. The Enemy, a book about peace, by David Khalil and illustrated by Serge Bloch.
So at this time, if there are any children who would like to go downstairs, they are welcome to do so. We don't have formal classes during the summer, but there are some volunteers providing childcare. But either way, we are going to sing This Little Light of Mine.
Light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Tony Lorenzen. My pronouns are he, him, and it's great to be with you this morning, especially because I was in a car accident on Friday. So I'm feeling very stiff and having a little problem with my hearing, but I'm okay, no serious injuries, and going on, and glad to be here. It's been a rough week all the way around in many ways, with an attempted assassination and lots of strange and difficult feelings about where we're at and who's our neighbor and how we find a way through a really difficult time. So it's good we're together this morning. And I want to offer some words from a colleague of mine, Reverend Leslie Takahashi Morris. She writes, "They teach us to read in black and white. Truth is this, the rest is false. You are whole or broken. Who you love is acceptable or not. Life tells its truth in many hues, but we are taught to think in either or, to believe in the teachings of Jesus or Buddha, to believe in human potential or a power beyond a single will. I am broken or I am powerful. Life embraces many truths, speaks of both and. We are taught to see in absolutes, taught good versus evil, taught male versus female, old versus young, gay versus straight. Let us see the fractions, the spectrum, the margins. Let us open our hearts to the complexities of our worlds. Let us make our lives sanctuaries to nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow world is more gorgeous than the monochrome, that a river of identities can ebb and flow over the static, stubborn rocks in its course. that the margins hold the center.
So this time when we share our milestones with each other, it's a time of coming together as a community, but also for quiet contemplation. And through this sharing, we remind each other that we're all in this together. It's a sometimes painful, but also sometimes wonderful human experience. Together, we try to create a heart space for seeking and granting forgiveness, a place where we can share grief and loss, as well as healing and hope, and a time for giving thanks and offering gratitude for our blessings, both great and small. We'll begin with our silent milestones. In a moment, if you'd like, you can come up and place a stone in the bowl, and then we'll move into our spoken milestones. And for anyone who's joining us online, if you would like your milestone read, please put it in the chat and I'll keep an eye on it and read it for you. Our reading this morning is titled The Good Conservative, which is a story based on one you may have heard before from the Christian scriptures. Just then, a curmudgeon stood up to test the spiritual teacher. Teacher, he said, what must I do to be a good person? The teacher said to the curmudgeon, what is the primary advice of sages? What do you read there? The curmudgeon answered, do unto others as you would have them do to you, and love your neighbor as yourself. And the teacher said to the curmudgeon, you have been given the right answer. Do this, and you will be a good person. But being a curmudgeon, the curmudgeon prodded the teacher again, asking, and who is my neighbor? The teacher replied, a Planned Parenthood educator was going down from Danbury to New Milford when her Prius broke down. Before she could call for assistance, a carload of bandits came upon her, and they smashed up her car, beat her, took her car's radio and her wallet and her cell phone, and went away, leaving her badly beaten and unconscious. Shortly after the bandits left, a Bethel Pride organizer was going down that road. And when they saw her, she pulled over to the far side of the road so as to pass by the broken car more easily. So likewise, a Unitarian Universalist minister, when he came upon the smashed up car and saw her, pulled over to the far lane so as to pass by on the other side. After a while, an off-duty paramedic on his way to an anti-abortion organizing meeting saw the woman near her smashed car and pulled over to investigate. He came near her, and when he saw her and how beaten up she was, he was moved with pity. He went back to his truck with the gun rack and the bumper stickers that said, "It's a child, not a choice," and "Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve," and got a blanket from his back seat and called for an ambulance. He then went to the Planned Parenthood organizer and sat by her. She regained consciousness, and he told her that he had called an ambulance, and he put the blanket gently over her and placed a hand lightly on her shoulder and asked her name and talked to her, telling her over and over that help would be there soon. He stayed with her until the ambulance and police arrived. The teacher asked the curmudgeon, "Which of these three do you think was a good neighbor to the person who fell into the hands of the bandits?" The curmudgeon said, "The one who showed her mercy." And the teacher said to him, "You should go and do likewise." So ends the reading. When you give your time and your energy to the work of this congregation, and when you donate to its financial support, you are giving gifts to each other. Each one gives to and receives gifts from all our members and friends, and together we give to the community around us. To make your gift this morning, you can use the link that's in the chat online. There's a QR code also on the screen. Our plates will pass here in the fellowship hall, and you may also mail a check to UUCD at 24 Clapboard Ridge Road in Danbury. We thank you for your generosity.
One of the times in my life that I experienced beloved community in an incredibly deep way was when I lived in Fort Worth, Texas. My family moved there in August of 2008 so that I could begin to serve a congregation of ours in Southlake, Texas in September. We quickly realized and understood that we were the only people on the street with an Obama bumper sticker. We were the only people on the street with an Obama yard sign. Our next door neighbors were young people, newlyweds, and our neighbors directly across the street from us were just retiring. They were all native Texans going back generations. Matt and Kay next door ran a small drilling company that did drilling for fracking operations. Billy Joe and Karen across the street were newly retired from the local public schools where she had been a teacher and he was the football coach. If you've seen the program Young Sheldon, he was the dad. That's who that guy was. They all owned guns. They were all going to vote for McCain. And to this day, They are the best neighbors I have ever had. Billy Joe and Katie were Army veterans. All of them attended the Methodist church in our neighborhood. When we first arrived and they discovered that we were Yankee transplants, they bought us a How to Speak Texan book. We learned from them there is no such thing as putting beans in Texas chili, just beef and sauce. We had beer and burgers frequently in their garages and driveways because people hung out in their garages and driveways. If you ever seen the show King of the Hill, this was King of the Hill. The alley, the driveway, this is exactly how our neighborhood worked. They taught us to check outside our door before we went out in case there was a rattlesnake. They taught us how to deal with fire ants in our lawn. Forget your environmentalism. You're just going to poison those suckers. Okay. All right. And we did. They brought over gifts on our birthdays. When I broke my foot one year over the Christmas holiday, and my wife at the time was an elementary school teacher, it was really hard for her to take off work, they brought me to the doctor and to church and picked up our son from school. They'd knock on our door on a Saturday afternoon and say, "We're going to movies. Y'all want to go with us?" During harvest season, we would get bushels of shelled pecans from Matt's family ranch in San Angelo. At first, they thought of me with my Harvard graduate degree as an East Coast intellectual elitist, a no-good transplant Yankee carpetbagger, and I was certainly suspect for a while for my non-Christian religion. At first, I thought I was afraid of that they were ignorant, racist rednecks. But I learned quickly from them and from my How to Speak Texan book that they were not rednecks, that rednecks tended to drive pickup trucks, waved Confederate flags, and used a lot of derogatory, racist, sexist, and other such terms. Rednecks resembled people to whom the term was first applied in the 19th century by rich white people, the rural poor white people, with skin, particularly the back of the neck, burned from too much sun exposure. And although Matt and Billy Joe did drive pickup trucks, they were more of what How to Speak Texan called a good old boy. Adult males in the Deep South who drank inexpensive American lagers, sometimes chewed tobacco, loved football, NASCAR, hunting, and fishing, and country music. Not above an off-color joke or an occasional slur referring to others, they were also incredibly good-natured, kind, hardworking family guys. My neighbors were Hank Hill. And yes, our politics were different. Our cultures were different. And some of our fundamental attitudes and the way we saw the world were different. But we weren't just friendly with each other. We were friends and good neighbors. What we were was an example of beloved community. When we see the term, when we hear the term beloved community, we tend to picture some future idealistic type of society. Not a utopia per se, but certainly a place of like-minded people where all our treasured liberal progressive values are actually practiced, a place where justice and equity have been achieved. Beloved community might not be heaven, but it's as close as we're going to get. And unfortunately, that is not what beloved community is. That liberal utopia is an idealized version of beloved community. Because beloved community is a place where everyone belongs and no one is a lesser person, even though we may have differences. Hopefully, those differences are celebrated. Beloved community is not perfect community. It's genuine community. A community that realizes we need to have loyalty to each other because we are all in this together, regardless of our differences and where we might disagree. The actual term beloved community comes from a philosopher and theologian named Josiah Royce, who did his major work between 1885 and 1915. His idea of the beloved community was later popularized by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Royce's interest as a thinker and writer was in phenomenological approaches to studying religious experiences. Royce was at heart a communitarian who thought that the focus on individualism in American intellectual traditions and philosophy, in the line of Emerson and William James and such, was incredibly misplaced because it left out the important and balancing aspect of community. He believed enlightened individualism needed the balance of genuine, not perfect, genuine community. Now, granted, his expectations were certainly grounded in a white Euro-American worldview and preferences in existence. But his emphasis on the importance of community is quite substantial. He wrote, "Individuals without community are without substance, while communities without individuals are blind." Royce's beloved community was genuine community built on a set of loyalties. What Royce called the predatory loyalties, such as racism and nationalism and militarism, are replaced in genuine community by different values that are more inclusive and draw important aspects from different sources and cultures. We would call it moving towards multicultural diversity. Beloved community is a large, encompassing community of interpretation whose life compromises, he says, and unifies all the social varieties and social communities which we know are actually there, are actually real. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy writes about Royce's beloved community, saying that people must work out the hard way in the complex world of history and politics, rather than in the deliberately simplified realm of theory, what it means to be in community. It is the process of communicating and understanding one another in actual, imperfect, finite communities of grace, bound together by loyalty and striving toward the ultimate and ideal of beloved community. Following Royce, Dr. King's beloved community becomes a place where, he says, prejudices will one day be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood, and that poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will then not allow it. Beloved community is a journey and a process of working out difference, overcoming barriers we create for ourselves, recognizing mutual humanity and moving toward an ideal of true inclusive justice and equity together. The process of beloved community is intensely, incredibly, profoundly messy. If all we do is form community with people who already share our opinions, our culture, and our politics and our point of view, we will never get to beloved community. It will remain solely an ideal, as remote and removed as some heavenly afterlife with no real impact on the here and now of our lived shared existence. The pilgrimage to beloved community requires a shift in how we see each other, how we understand what it means to work for justice and equity and inclusion. we tend to generally operate out of a worldview that sees justice work through the lens of issues, of political sides, laws, competing rights claims. But the lens of doing justice through beloved community has the lens of relationship. That beloved community doesn't come from sharing the right or correct position on an issue or politics, but by being in healthy, right relationship with each other. We focus on being on the right side of an issue or the right side of history, such as reproductive choice or gay marriage or genocide or terrorism or civil rights. But for lasting progress on all these issues must first come right relationship. When you and the other are sharing beloved community, you're in what Martin Buber called the I-thou relationship. But when the other and ourselves are not in right relationship, we are what Buber called the I-it relationship. Our struggle, therefore, is to see each other as human, not to win our side of the issue. In the end, the most important thing or issue is, are we and us? Are we in right relationship? Does our community have what Royce will call genuine community? This is what Leela Watson, the Australian Aboriginal activist, meant when she said, and you've probably heard this, if you have come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you have come here because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. That's beloved community. We now have a new Article 2 in our UUA bylaws. The 7 principles have been replaced by 7 values and the covenants we need to keep to ensure we practice them. In a sense, the covenants we keep to practice our values are right relationship. What the new Article 2 is doing for us is making the switch from right positions on issues, right philosophy, right thinking about what's right and wrong, to the relationships we must be in if we say we're practicing these values, and the covenants and promises we need to make with each other to make sure we achieve living out these values in reality, in our lives, in community. It's no longer good enough to say we believe in the dignity and worth of every person. We must forge a covenant with others that puts that love into practice, where we are in relationship with those who are different from us. It's no longer enough to say we value democracy in society and our congregations. We now have to find a way to make a covenant with those with whom we disagree in the democratic process and discourse that recognizes our mutual humanity. Our new Article 2 moves us from having the right ideas to seeking to practice right relationship. And in that, I think it's very profound. And what I'm talking about is not any type of false equivalency. It's not that any opinion is okay in forming beloved community. If you enter community, it can't be genuine if you refuse to recognize someone as being equally human. That's the old saying about we can agree to disagree as long as your disagreement isn't about my humanity. Someone's humanity is not up for discussion. But I think we have a lot of people to work with who aren't really at that point. I think there's a lot more people who are reachable, who are able to be in beloved community with us, who we may write off at first because we don't stop and think deeply about what it is we're trying to do. In the parable of the good conservative, it is the person who helps the wounded person that is in right relationship, not the people with the liberal values or the jobs working for liberal organizations or even the Unitarian Universalist minister. The person who's in right relationship is the person who drops everything they're doing to help the one who is in need. The people with our similar politics and worldviews and our lofty ideals and positions on issues in that story were unable to function out of right relationship. But it was the conservative who acted as if the hurt liberal was a thou, not an it, even with all the disagreements they shared with that person. And just like the parable of the Good Samaritan, the person who acts out of right relationship turns the story on its head. For it is the enemy, the other, who ends up doing what's right. And the way you heard that story today, the original hearers of that story understood Samaritans to be that person you thought the conservative was. That's why that story works so well in its original setting. There's a guy who wrote a book called The Year of Living Biblically, where he tried to live everything in the Old and New Testament. And one of the things he does is he goes to Samaria because there's a place called the Good Samaritan Coffee Shop, and he meets the owner. And of course, he asks the owner about the parable of the Good Samaritan. And the owner tells him something that I've always thought was really profound, that he thinks the teller of the story was the person who got hurt and robbed, which I'd never heard of before I read that. I think that's a great perspective. Frequently, the Good Samaritan story is told from a systemic justice perspective these days that realizes we need to fix the road, not just do the right thing as an individual, so that the robberies and assaults won't happen. But we can only get to that systemic point of fixing the road if we are in right relationship with each other, because it's only then we can genuinely argue about what having a fixed road looks like. Until then, we're just arguing with each other about what our version of the fixed road looks like. If we find a way to be in right relationship with the other, we're going to find that the robbers on the road aren't there anymore. When we're in right relationship, we'll finally understand, as our story pointed out today, that no one should be our enemy, because we are all on the same side. There is no them. It's only us. And we all need to find a way to save ourselves.
I invite you to join in our hymn of celebration, which will be number 121, We'll Build a Land. The words are on the screen, and please rise in body and or spirit.
Bind up the broken, we'll build a land where the captives go free. Of gladness, songs of mourning, we'll build a promised land. Sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace where justice shall roll down like waters, peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come, build a mantles of praises, resound from the Spirit's of righteousness, enter people. Oh, come build a land, my people receive. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
As we begin to close our service, it's time to extinguish the chalice. So please join me in the words you'll see on the screen and in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts
World until we are. Our service ends, and so our time of service to the world begins. May we be builders of bridges, agents of peacemaking, good neighbors, and seek to have no one be our enemy. Go in peace, beloveds.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. This isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of men. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.